Good morning, folks.
Hello.
Morning, everybody.
Hey, sorry.
Hey.
Hi there.
Hey. That's an interesting background. I like the kind of brick. It's an interesting design.
It's one of the default ones in Zoom. But
Yeah.
thank you.
I do what I can, little things.
Hey, Abby. Hey, Matt.
I think I like Abby's background a little bit better though.
Very early stage startup, hey? Can't
Mhm.
pay enough money to plasterboard in all the bits.
No. It wouldn't be authentic that way.
Yeah, exactly.
I will share in notes and agenda if anyone wants to add anything or comment. There you go. We'll just give it another 2 minutes. Let people come in. All right. Well, give 30 more seconds. Oh, there it is. It just binged to 11:04 on mine. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. So there's the notes again. Just walk through here. Please consider putting your name in the list of attendees, just so we track. We like to start off greeting new folks, people that new faces that haven't joined before. If you want to just introduce yourself real quick, tell us, something you specialize in, and so we can keep an eye on when to call on you here and when to ask you to contribute.
Hi, yeah, I can go. My name's Bob Hong, and I'm an architect and working on platforms at Rockwell Automation. And just recently found out about the working group and the maturity model, and I'm really pretty excited because it fits exactly with the types of things that I want to do that we're actively pursuing to mature our platforms and to make them more available to a broader audience across the organization. So yeah, I've just kind of been going through all the docs and reviewing the maturity model and platform as product doc, and yeah, great stuff, and excited to contribute wherever I can.
Thank you for your already contributions, by the way. I definitely saw your name pop up, and yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, good to get some, we call them end users in CNCF parlance, customers in here. Make sure we get your feedback. Anyone else want to jump off mute? No pressure. A little pressure. All right. Well, one of the things that we also offer or ask is if you have a story from like an end user company or your own company and you want to share with us, we really like to hear them. We can give you, we're going to give Matt, he's going to present to us today. I told him he could have 5 to 7 minutes, although we usually try to keep it down to 3 to 5 minutes. So as you know, whatever you want to share with us, Matt, that would be great to.
Happy to. Thanks, Josh, for the opportunity, and hello, everyone. My name is Matt Minzensky. I'm a senior engineering manager at Payit. We're based in Kansas City, Missouri, in the U.S. We are a SaaS company that I'm still kind of struggling on like the one sentence what we do, but we build a platform that allows constituents of government to interact with the government agencies in a way that's better for everybody. So this could mean paying personal property tax. This could mean renewing a motor vehicle registration. This could mean paying a court ticket, requesting a copy of a professional certificate, applying for temporary assistance, any of those kinds of things. We work with a lot of different cities and states and counties in the US, and we have a big platform, something like 150 microservices spanning a bunch of different AWS accounts and regions. We have US and Canada production environments, and I've been at Payit for a long time, a little over 7 years, and have seen a lot of growth in the organization. And as we've grown, there have also grown some kinds of gaps in our platform offering. So one of the things that I think a lot about is one of our founders, who was the CTO for a long time and has since left, is very technical and wrote a lot of core code early on in the company. So things like authentication, things like some key user experiences, things like some key platform functionalities like service creation pipelines, queuing processes, background queues, things like that. And as we've grown and we've invested in product teams, some of these things have kind of ceased to be maintained. And so there's opportunities there. And I, as of recently, as of April, am over our platform engineering function, and I'm kind of charged with taking us in a more modern direction, if you will, kind of helping push us in the direction of platform engineering in the sense that I think this group uses it. And so our platform engineering team today really is more of like an infrastructure operations team, right? Care and feeding of Kubernetes clusters and some key managed services like MongoDB and some observability tooling. And I'm interested to try to push their scope of ownership a little bit to include like a useful layer of abstraction on top of those offerings, right? And to actually kind of measure success of the team in terms of what they're enabling other teams to do, whether that's stand up a new application quickly or own an application in production more effectively, or have better alerting on applications. So it's very early, but I've been meeting with the team and doing a lot of planning, and hopefully this Q4 we're really going to start to push things in the right direction. So yeah, it's an exciting time for me. I'm getting to address a lot of the frustrations that I've begun to feel about our stack. So I think it'll be interesting. I have a meeting actually with our SVP of product this week to talk about platform as a product. So I'm excited. I'm hoping I can share something again in a year, talk about where we've been.
That's great to know. I mean, that's such a you're such a perfect fit for our group, to help us, make sure that we're giving the right advice to you and to everyone else too. So yeah.
I feel very, very lucky to be in this position. There's a lot of, because I'm really kind of coming from the application developer background, right? I ran like an integrations team, I ran a maintenance engineering team, and a lot of on-call support. I'm also over a data engineering function too, but just to be able to interact with platform engineering from the perspective of having like deep empathy for the application side, I'm excited about what we're going to be able to do.
One of the challenges I think I've heard others mention that sounds like it's a part of your journey that I'm excited to learn more about as you experience it is the challenges of trying to both manage the infrastructure and that higher level abstraction within one kind of group of humans. And yeah, where you evolve that, how you support that group of humans to be successful with both areas, as well as if you end up splitting like responsibilities in some way, that's something that I've definitely heard people asking questions about and having concerns with, and I'm looking forward to hearing your journey with it. So
yeah,
yeah.
One of the things that makes it really hard right now is this particular platform engineering team really owns like dollar costs of a lot of the infrastructure. And so I think that we really need to be strategic about what we invest in terms of headcount versus what we invest in terms of like operational expenditures. We have a lot of big decisions coming up with things like, do we continue to self-manage MongoDB, or do we move to a hosted solution like Atlas or DocumentDB? And I think platform engineering and kind of the strategic goals of the team is going to need to be a big part of that decision, right? Like I know the consensus, I think, seems to be favoring like use managed solutions and keep your kind of capacity spent on what is business specific for your business. And I think that's the direction I'd like to go, but introducing a new operational expenses is a challenge. So
there was a talk at DevOps Days London this past week by someone around like kind of green ops and eco oriented things. And they made a really interesting point of how using managed services are also eco-friendly, because bin packing as a single organization versus bin packing as an entire cloud provider is different, right? Your ability to be efficient with your resources, with your CPU, with your memory, is to one degree as an organization, to another degree when you offload to like a serverless functions that the cloud provider then does to the most efficient way possible. So yeah, I think that cost savings is a big concern today, and it would be silly not to focus on that. And I think it's interesting how that has like knock-on effects with eco, and how that the managed services actually they shift where the costs are, but they can actually improve the costs potentially depending.
Yeah, and
all
I
very
think too,
interesting.
like having a long tenure here and dealing with people leaving and people joining, and the training costs and the operational knowledge walking out the door, like investing in managed services, I think makes a lot of sense from that perspective as well. And so it's the question of like, can we appropriately communicate the long-term concerns and not just the short-term like operational costs? So we'll see, but it's been really interesting.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Matt, and other folks that are willing to share stories like that with us. Just take 5 minutes and tell us your journey. Help us learn what it's like, or confirm some of the hypotheses in the paper. Just let us know, or drop your name into the agenda. Okay. So one other just general announcement I wanted to share is our KubeCon plans in Chicago. We do have a project meeting space reserved on Monday morning at the conference center. So if folks from the group want to meet there, then at any time during that morning, let's talk about it. We haven't really made any concrete plans, but we have the space. I know Abby also wants to perhaps run some other like meetup times, birds of a feather. So check out the issue if you want to work on that. We will also have a booth in the project pavilion where all the other CNCF projects go. We just have a PM booth, so like 3 o'clock each day, and then like we have it during the booth crawl. That I thought was nice. So you could come hang out there. We could have people do presentations there. We could even let projects take over the booth for 10 minutes and do a presentation. We could do lightning talks. We did in the past. We had some lightning talk sessions, so that's something we could think about. And then the last thing is that we are having a session on panels. Session on platforms. A panel session on platforms. Abby and I are leading it with Colin and a couple end users that we have asked to join us that have some significant platforms. So come and join us. That'll be great. Yeah, I think I just wanted to share that, we could continue discussion in the issue.
Yeah, I think one.
George, can you hear me? George, can you hear me?
You're a little echoey, Saeem. That's
Is it?
better.
Thanks. So just sharing, like in a KubeCon Chicago, there's a event I'm actually organizing with the CNCF called Multi-Tenancy Con. And I wanted to invite some of the folks who are actually attending the KubeCon in person will be there at the Multi-Tenancy Con. I will share the link in the chat in a minute. So basically, I wanted to actually highlight some of the work that actually we are doing here on that conference as well. So having some presence in some of the co-located events in the KubeCon, I think really resonate our works that we actually were doing here. So that just an announcement from my side.
Thank you, Saeem. That is a really good point. There's like 10 co-located events. There's a Backstage Con, which some of us are probably interested in, Argo Con, Multi-Tenancy Con, App Developer Con. Yeah, it's a little, that's been tricky how to balance this. So yeah, if people are going to those, yeah, that's great too. Here's the schedule. I should post that.
I just have one question. So in terms of if I can be of any help and one other than just coming there and visiting you both, is there anything that I can contribute to for the group on during the booth or during the conference, during the co-located event space?
Mostly, yeah, just being present probably at the booth, able to talk about some of the initiatives and projects that we're involved with. We did do a lightning talk, and we could do that again. We did do a call for presentations where we asked people to just present a new idea for 5 minutes or an open source project related to app delivery. Maybe we'll do that again if folks are interested. And if DJ, if you have some new idea or something.
Yeah, to be honest, this is the first time for me attending that big event, so I don't know how it is. So that's where I'm asking: is there anything that I can be of contributing to?
Yeah, just observe. I wouldn't put too much pressure on yourself.
Sure.
Yeah, I found myself circling the booth a lot, coming back around and seeing who was there and having conversations and finding them to be interesting. So yeah, I think you'll find, in my experience, you'll find sort of groups of people that are having conversations in the platform space and then just leads to interesting offshoots. So I agree with Josh. There's no pressure on anyone, but opportunities definitely present themselves as getting involved in the booth area and stuff like that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun zone anyway, because it's all the technical folks working on all the projects. So okay. So with that, Abby, so we're going to talk about the maturity model, which is coming a really long way on it. And it's really exciting and looking really promising, and we'll get it ready for KubeCon. Abby, do you want to take over here and lead the conversation?
Sure. Yeah, as Josh said, it's super exciting where it's come from. I think we've had something like 40 different people review, respond to, add to, improve the model over the last almost 6 months, I'd say, that it's been there. So it gives me a lot of confidence that we are addressing a lot of people's challenges and needs and all that. And the people have ranged from startup to large enterprise, and from vendor to consultant to platform team member and that kind of thing. So again, seeing a lot of that. I think somebody summed it up perfectly that did a review of it today in their kind of comment back to me, is like, there's always going to be things you can do better. There's always going to be changes that people will recommend. But at some level, the only way you really refine and improve something like this is getting it published, getting like a certain subset, like a certain mass of eyes on it, right? You know, sure, 40 people is really exciting, but 400, 4,000, 40,000 is where we start to see, you know, scale, and we really get to feel it creak, right? Where like not just this one word change, but this entire concept is missing, or we were blind to it. And that's where I think our focus is right now, is like figuring out how to be proud of it being published, confident with it being published, acknowledging that it is only going to be V1 and that V2 will be bound to come out in the future as we learn from it. And I guess the proposal right now is that we're sort of narrowing in there. So we understand that Google Docs is a lot easier to provide suggestions to and have a lower barrier of entry for editing and that kind of stuff, which is why we've left that there as long as we can. The goal is to put it into GitHub kind of today, tomorrow, which will enable us to start getting eyes on it from sort of CNCF leadership. So with that, I mean the tag, people who are in leadership of the tag, app delivery, as well as our representatives on the talk, as being the technical oversight committee, which is above tags, as well as our peer tags. So people like the cartographers who are, I always say it wrong, who are working on the overarching cloud native maturity model. We want them to have time and to review and things. And I think all these people were asking for these tangential reviews from. We've been keeping them abreast of how we've been going all along, but look, everyone has their own focuses. And so being able to go to them with, hey, we're really feeling confident now. This is like you allocating your time and energy to reviewing this makes sense now, because we're not going to kind of table flip and completely restart unless something major comes up. And so that's sort of where we're at. So with that, it does not mean that we're finalized. If you're like concerned because there are things you want to think on more deeply or propose, PRs, changes to the GitHub are still more than welcome. These are not, you know, the door has not yet closed, but just, yeah, that's, I guess, where we're at in the way of confidence in it. So if there's any big concerns with that, this would be the time to speak up, I would say.
Super exciting.
Yeah. And just to say, I get that it might be A, not everyone can make these meetings, and B, it might be scary to jump on a call and say, yes, I think we should red button stop this thing. There are major concerns I have with going to V1 release on a call like this. And so you're welcome to ping me in a back channel. You're welcome to ping on the CNCF Slack, either in the group channel or directly, if you do have those concerns, and I will absolutely be excited to hear them. And like, I'd much rather someone raise it now than later say I told you so. So you know, please don't be worried about that. So
Yeah, and I think we could take a few minutes now, if you're okay with it, Abby. We could take even 10-15 minutes if there's anything really salient that you want to bring
yeah,
up.
I think there's maybe, I was trying to do one final review and I got a little bit running out of time, you know, life. But I think maybe one thing that I saw that would be a useful group chat. So this is the document if people want to play along at home. It's in the notes document, but now just add it to chat as well. I think one of the questions that I thought has been sort of, I think it was called a nitpick, but I don't actually think it's a nitpick. It was bothering me for a long time as well, is like, I really, like, I think we've narrowed in on something like provisional, operational, scalable, and optimized, but there is like a difference in kind of tone to each of those words or function to those words. So I guess there's been a suggestion of provisional, operational, scalable, and optimal or optimizable as one kind of, if we were to align in one way of saying those words. A different way of saying those words could be provisioned, operated, scaled, and optimized. So one is like maybe more capable of this kind of behavior or this kind of characteristic, and the other one is more like been there, done that, ticked the box, like got the tattoo, you know, kind of thing. And I'm not sure if anyone has a strong reaction to either of those ways of like leaning.
I like and understand optimized and optimal in the sense that they connote like there's no need to go past this. But there's also kind of an inescapable value judgment there. Because optimal sounds very positive, right? So are the other ones negative? Have we thought about something like sustaining or sustainable? Meaning like we've got to a point where there's no reason to progress past this. Like this is where it's reached some sustaining level.
It's interesting because
CNCF uses sustaining in other contexts, and I don't know if that is helpful or harmful here, but
I was going to mention the term sustainable as an alternative for scalable or a synonym for it has come up a couple times. So yeah, that's kind of interesting that maybe it's the stage beyond scalable.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because, as you say, one of the key kind of points that we were aiming for was that none of these levels, we've tried for these levels not to feel opinionated as everyone must get to level 4. Like even in the intro, we say like, look, if you're a team of 10 devs, like, do you need to be scalable? I don't know. Maybe you're servicing 1 billion people, and yes, it needs to be scalable, but like maybe you're early stage and you don't need to be scalable yet. You just need to get to kind of provisional or operational. And so I I think it's important that you're bringing up a question of are we actually achieving that intention of like keeping these as things that indicate what might be needed by the company rather than indicate success or failure if you're not reaching something.
Yeah, like there's similar to the comment about kind of organization size, there's like the whole like company positioning part of this, right? Like as a startup who maybe will need to pivot, your concerns are very different from a mature organization who's like established a position in the market. And like not to throw that onto everything as well, I guess, but there's I don't know. I don't have issues with optimized or optimal, but just trying to throw some other thoughts out there.
One thing that I'm hearing with it as well, so like so hear that. Also don't know if you have a preference towards that idea of like achieved status, so scaled, sustained, like operational, or if you have a preference towards, or sorry, so operated, etc., or if you have a preference towards that, like we have the capability of being operational, of being scalable, of being sustainable or optimal. Like, did either of those resonate?
I have mixed thoughts about this. I mean, since having worked on the interface document, I do realize that, while we were working on it, we had thoughts that at every particular level, the platform would have achieved a certain level of, functionality. So keeping that in mind, it sounds correct when we say it's provisioned or operationalized or, operated, scaled, optimized on that way. But I think Matt also pointed one thing, especially on the optimized level, that, mentioning optimized would convey in a way that, okay, are we done there? But then actually, no, that's not, the evolution of platform shouldn't stop. So I think that message goes really well when we have optimal or optimizable, so that that there is always a room for improvement, sort of. So mixed thoughts, but then both, I'm fine with both of them.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm with you. I'm with you most of the way there until the end. I think when you say the word optimal, that sounds like to me that this is the optimal solution. That's what you have gotten to is like a arrived state. And obviously the difference between the optimized and the rest are just straight adjectives. They're just describing something, while optimized, there's like a verb that's kind of being used, a past tense verb. So I'm not necessarily upset that we're using a verb for the last one. I think maybe a different approach you could take is like optimizing, It's a present tense verb that's like connotating that this is something that you're actively continuing to do. And so it kind of hits on like what is actually going on while still giving respect to the others. This is just another path. I know there's a lot of paths, but I also want to be cognizant of like, if we change words entirely, that's also something to think about. That modifies like the rest of the paper of like, there's a lot of other things that need to be changed. That may be like a nice like middle ground.
Also, I feel that it doesn't hurt to have the last state, which is a special state because it's the last one, right? In a different framing than the other states.
I have a question actually, now that we're getting into the weeds on this a little bit. Are these terms intended to be descriptive of the platform as like a thing, or of like our platform engineering practices as an organization? Because I feel like that maybe adds a little bit of difference to how I feel about some of these things. If it's, you know, our platform is never going to be optimal, right? There's always going to be new tooling and things like that. But like, can our practices be optimal? Can we have like an optimal level of investment and adoption? Maybe. Like, I don't know that that's.
Yeah, so I think very good question. So many good things coming out of this. This is why I say that, like, for all the value people say they get from the white paper, this is the conversations from doing the white paper that I feel like everyone who just read it missed out on. And so we all are all here doing that, getting that benefit for this model, and like we'll all be able to look at all the people who read it and get value and be like, you have no idea. So yes, so to your point, to your question, Matt, we are explicitly saying that like this is not a model for the platform, because I've gone through and specifically I have removed all references to singular platforms, because while an organization might have a singular platform, it is at scale. That is something that would limit this model to this model's effectiveness for larger scale organizations, where they more likely have capabilities which are delivered in many different ways, or across potentially many different platforms and platform teams, right? So yes. So to answer your question, this is not about the platform, and it is also not that any one you are not one level. You are not optimized or scaled or provisioned. You are evaluating the ways of working that you're doing, and they may be at different levels. And we call out that like sometimes there will be tight coupling of you can't achieve a certain level within one aspect without leveling up another aspect at least a little bit, but they are relatively independent in that you can be optimized for one thing and merely operational with another one, right? And that's okay, and that's possible. Does that help answer those questions directly? Okay. Not trying to skirt the question.
One question from my side, or more like an observation. If we look at the graphic that you just showed again with the like the modeling of the adoption to maturity rate, it feels like there is a mapping of the levels to specific phases. Like if we say, level 3 is the growth phase, and then, level 1 is the R&D phase of your platform. I think from what we have down in the table, the name of those phases compared to those, the name of the levels compared to those phases, maybe we should just do one of those. Like,
that's in there. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think my proposal right now, and that no one has particularly blocked me on yet. I'm waiting for someone to say, no, Abby, stop using your power. But right now, my proposal is that these terms of like R&D, product market fit, growth, etc., I think everyone agrees that those are taking a more startup and or more product phrasing to them, and that they would be really good fits for the platform as a product paper, to introduce those as a way of like thinking about the growth of your product, but maybe a little bit too high of a barrier to entry for most readers without the depth of a platform as a product paper. So yes, I think there's an intention to update the graphic to match accordingly, but to match the current table with the words that we have there. But one thing that I'm actually hearing from you there is I'm wondering if this graphic, even with the correctly labeled groups, may actually be a better fit under the like header of adoption, rather than at the forefront of the document. Because I just finished telling Matt, or trying to answer Matt's question from my perspective, which is that like there is no one platform and one level of maturity, and yet then, as you're bringing up very intelligently, Dominique, is like this is indicating that there is one path through these levels, right? That this is the journey you'll go on. And actually what this is really capturing visually is the path of adoption, which is one of our aspects.
Yep.
So yeah, that was really
I mean,
interesting.
I'm happy with the changes you made around one platform versus the platform. Abby, I feel like it's always a case of like at a certain level of granularity, it's one versus many, regardless of what the actual implementation is like. So I like that we've kind of shelved that. I think it's always a hard question to answer.
That's an appreciated confirmation on that, because I think we talked about it a little bit with the platform white paper, and we didn't end up doing the edit for that paper. So we talk about the platform in that paper. But it was something that was being talked about right around publishing time. So similar to right now, we're having these discussions and we're like, do we include it in V1 or do we not for this paper? And we've seen that kind of that idea come through and affect this paper. I'm sure we'll see something like that as well, where we'll see some of these later conversations affect other papers that we release. And yeah. Okay, so what I'm taking from this is I'm going to have we are going to do an update on these levels to match the vocabulary of this paper, with the understanding that this more product/startup vocabulary is possibly like something we want to introduce and encourage in the platform as a product paper, because that has the opportunity to go more in depth into what that means for you. I'm going to have a look at whether or not this diagram fits best where it is, or if it's best under adoption, so as to be the least surprising for where you might find it and where you might look at it. And I'm going to have a bit of a think around whether or not we go with the achieved state for these words, the a characteristic that ability state for these words, and whether or not sustained or sustainable or sustaining or whatever is a better.
We all like optimizing.
Optimizing.
Seemed like everybody nodding as Asari was suggesting that. So
cool. So then let's call that as like the de facto, unless something comes up. And again, we'll do the, as people sleep on it, we can have reviews in GitHub and all that. Awesome. Is that about the amount of time, Josh? I don't know if there's anything else. The only other one that people maybe want to think about over time is, I think that leaves any level of kind of question mark, is you get to scalable, as in you're treating this like a product and there's feedback loops to what you're investing in and what you're choosing to build out as a part of your product that is your platform or a set of platform capabilities. When you get to optimizing, we're looking at that as that it is bringing specialist skill sets into all the things that you're delivering. So, making sure that security and FinOps and compliance and performance and user testing and all these things are things that are built into the platforms. And yeah, we're trying to think of what the right word is for that, but that's maybe a word that we're still less confident on when it comes to table values. But just stuff to think on, I think. Other than that, we're in a good shape. Let me know if you think otherwise.
Yes. So Abhi, I just have one question in here. So I was actually chatting with Josh on the previous week as well. So we use a term capabilities very heavily, and thankfully, just Josh has pointed me out like we have capability section in the previous platform white paper. So now the thing is like if somebody came into this paper directly and start reading it, and he comes to have so many terms like capabilities in every place, and we have a no, we excluded it because of our previous work. But now in order to understand this paper very effectively, they jump into the previous paper, read it out, and then go back in here. So that's one of the things we actually, either we can actually include a one phrase or a two-liner, what do we meant by capabilities, so in order so that people don't jump into the previous paper and read about it, because that's where a hurdle is for the previous paper as well. Like sometimes you have described some places in the previous version, and usually people don't go on that places to understand it. But people have to go there, but sometimes people won't go there and just trying to understand what the capabilities are. So that's I discussing with Josh previously. Like we can have a few words or few details around what we meant by capabilities in this paper, so people can get an initial grasp at it.
Sorry,
Yeah,
wrong mute button. Go on, Josh.
Go ahead. Oh, darn. I've been thinking of bringing that up too here, Saeem, at least just to put out that we are using that term and see what people think about it. We did discuss it a few times in the first paper. We talked about capabilities and features, and I don't know that we ended up elaborating on it too much, but we said a capability is the top level thing that a platform gives to its users to be integrated. Whereas a feature might be an element of that, like observability might be a general capability, but then there are features in it like alerting or metric gathering collection. Yeah, so that's kind of, we've defined capability in that way, as opposed to like, in my mind, it's like as opposed to an application or a service, which is the actual value stream that gets delivered to a customer. But yeah, I guess like what do folks feel comfortable with that term? Like, yeah, I don't know, I guess we could put a little more definition of it here, maybe in the what are platforms section or something. If we all...
Abby, you already shared like the glossary. Maybe it would be just a glossary entry, right? Because we have platform capability providers, maybe then we should add platform capabilities before that.
Yeah, and this is just to be clear, this is the glossary for the white paper. But we could look to add that, either duplicate it or introduce a glossary just for this paper, or extend this one to include that. Yeah,
or move this
that's
out
what I
of
was
the
looking for.
top level paper to a separate doc glossary.
Yeah.
Common
That might be very powerful, because then all of a sudden in this website, you've got your platform working group, and you've got like platform glossary, or like whatever glossary here, and then you've got your white paper, you've got your maturity model, you've got your platform as a product paper, all these things that can all point back to that glossary, just like we do. And again, we are independent of the larger CNCF, but it would be a bit unfortunate if we didn't learn lessons from them, and if we didn't like try and achieve a similar look and feel, where it made sense. And they have a glossary for cloud native, right? So I don't know where it goes, but like cloud CNCF glossary, cloud native glossary, right? So like, yeah, they have a whole site for it. So that pattern of having like a global place to point to, right? And that like the first time, what I was looking at, the reason I did a control find for capabilities in here is, where's the first time that we use it? Could we link out to the glossary item the first time we use it, so that like someone goes, what the heck is this word, to your point, Saeem, and like they can click on that, and it's not a whole paper. It's not 10 pages they have to read. It's a single glossary item, 1 or 2 sentences, but yet we don't have to recreate that wheel every time. I think it's a great idea.
Yes, that's more reasonable. Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to weigh in. I think that's a great idea. As a new reader of the paper. I honestly, capabilities was pretty natural of a term to me. So it was pretty clear. I did go back after I went through the maturity model and read the platform white paper, so that provided more context. But I do like the idea of having a hyperlink out to the glossary, and where you throughout the maturity model where you have links to other terms, like some of the other models, like the score model, I wasn't familiar with. So that was something. I think it was just hyperlinked and took me right out to it. That was great. So I think that's a really good organizational structure.
Yes, I only just wasn't familiar with. Do you say the score model? I don't know. Doesn't matter. The idea being that, and so I've captured those. These are our little like to-do items. So perfect. Yeah, I think that's very actionable and very powerful improvement.
Oh, actually, I think score might have been referenced in the platform as a product paper, but
gotcha. Yeah. Cool.
Yora and Space and DevX. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. That clocks then, because I haven't actually gotten as far deep into that. So I was like, wait a second, where have I lost the plot? But yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. Cool. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing so as to stop hogging the meeting. But this is all really, really helpful. As I said, we're still gonna keep this open for another kind of probably week to 10 days once it gets into GitHub kind of tonight, tomorrow. And then, so if you'd like to make changes to it at that point, like opening up a PR against it or making a comment on it, those will be the ways to do that. And then we'll look to sort of publish it to the website and then finalize any imagery and whether or not we print anything for KubeCon Chicago. And we'll put out a announcement blog post. So those are all the sort of the wrap up activities once we feel confident in the paper itself. So yeah, fantastic.
Abby, so in terms of getting it into GitHub, are you gonna take that on, or do you want to talk about that?
I'm sort of the de facto. If no one else wants to, I'll do it.
I'm happy to
But
help.
if somebody has a passion around getting involved in the website stuff, this would be a good way to get started with that. And appreciate the help, Josh. And yeah, so
Yeah, I was gonna say, are you gonna just like upload it as a single doc to begin with? Because like in the websites, is there anything fancy we want to do with like linking or sub pages or stuff?
I don't know. It's a great question. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for that. So that's one of those things where we can create a PR that's maybe lo-fi in the sense of like a single page, and then look to make it a bit fancier. And that can be the type of thing that PRs come in for. Or we can start there if you have a vision for it. I think what we have, which is really nice for the white paper, is we have the website and then we have a printable version, a PDF. And I think we'll want the same thing. We will want this to be PDFable, like printable. But also the website doesn't have to be a PDF, right? It doesn't have to be like in the shape of a PDF. It can be links. So yeah.
I think I like your suggestion. If you want to go with that, let's just upload it to start with as the one pager, all in one, and then we'll iterate from there.
Yep.
Put it into the website.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Abby. This is great stuff. And yeah, it's great to get. We've already got end user eyes on it, and yeah, we'll keep moving forward. And this is, I just looking at the past half hour of this conversation, just it strengthens for me, like as much as we can do async, getting the in-person meetings to like the ideas that came out just in this half hour is really great. Yeah, so just to wrap up, a couple other things that just FYI, or please take a look. They're in the notes. So I know Michael had a meeting this week. I haven't watched it yet. I know a couple of you were there. If you have anything to say in a couple of minutes here, working on the platform as product paper, which is what's coming up next. Now we've got the maturity model coming out.
I can give a short summary of that. I think it was a very successful meeting. As you said, some folks from here were also there, so nice to see you again. The decision was to meet up next week again. I don't know if Michael already sent out the invites for that. Michael and me are currently working on the first draft for getting a research goal and you know, a general script, what we want to achieve with the research and who we want to reach with it and how we can potentially do that. We're working on getting this done this week and then show it off in the next meeting sometime next week, depending on when he schedules the meeting.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm really happy that we're getting together the goals first, because yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, product
Let's
people involved, right?
Yeah, exactly.
let's make sure, Josh, between you and I, and Dominic, you can help with sharing, making sure Michael's aware. We can, that both of us can create the invites on like the CNCF calendars, and we've gotten feedback before that there's two processes. So one is if people are signed up to the working group, well, it's to the tag actually, they will get like alerted to new events being created. So if we create an event for this, people will be like, oh, there's an event for this, like in their email versus just watching like Slack or having to be in these calls to know. But then secondly, we can also separately get it onto the actual CNCF calendar. So there's two different mechanisms. That is a little bit of a bigger task because that's a human driven process. So I think we want to maybe try and aim, I think, for if we can make plans, if we have plans at least a week in advance or whatever, we can get those things in those places, and that might help people be alerted to things. So yeah, Josh, maybe one of us can reach out to Michael and figure out the time and see if we can get it into those different mechanisms. So, but also just I think that the reason I took the time to say that out loud in this call is because what these calls are really good for is awareness of what's possible and about like working practices of the working group. So FYI to everyone, if anyone ever wants to have a face-to-face, a Zoom call or whatever that's relating to the working group and would like that to be something that's broadcasted and more available to people, please reach out to one of the working group or tag leads. We all have capabilities of getting that onto the right kind of calendars and things like that. So yes.
Yeah, I'm hoping to come to the next one for sure.
Yeah, so Josh, just a final question from my side is next week I'm participating in the DevOps Stage conference, is the virtual one. Can I use some of the content from the platform maturity model in the talk?
Looking at you, Abby, but yeah, why
I
not?
did. I think the big thing is just to caveat that it's going to be, it's still pre V1, and that version 1's going to be coming out shortly. I think that way you're sort of safe to share it in its current state. There's been no hiding the state of the paper along the way. People can see where it came from and where it's going to. So, yeah, I think that's really exciting, and thank you for wanting to include it. I'm glad that it's helpful. So,
Thanks, Abby, for sharing the insight.
Cool. The one other thing I was going to let folks know, I know there was interest for some folks in this group a while back, is that we are talking with a group that wants to form a working group around API conventions and standards, based on a collection of proposals that they have, based on some of the frameworks that we have, and addressing some of the Kubernetes, I guess, APIs and infrastructure APIs. It's kind of nascent, but I'm trying to find out, if there's interest from the different projects and from users. So I dropped that in. It's number 448 in our repo. But yeah, if you're interested in that, chime in on that thread, or go to there. Currently, they have a group called AEP in Slack. You could join that. Yeah, so just wanted to share that. And I think that's all for today. Any last comments? Anything else? All right. So have a good one. And we'll see you online, everyone. Talk to you next time.
Thank you. See you around.
Thank you for joining,
Thank
everyone.
Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks.